Hi everyone, welcome to this session, which is part of the 2025 Lean in Higher Education International Conference, hosted by Asia Pacific, where we are going to be sharing why we're mad keen for lean. Delighted to be recording this presentation for you guys, and what I'm going to be talking to you about is how do we build and grow a community of practice. I'm really excited to be talking to you about this today because I have had the honour of leading and building a couple of communities of practice over the years. And I think it's an absolutely fantastic way of getting people together who are passionate about a particular discipline, but also to really help us to build knowledge in the area and apply it as practitioners. So the focus of this session is to think about how do we build and grow a community of practice. And I think you bring in people who are very passionate about their discipline. So if we think about our Lean in Higher Education community of practice, over the years we have had a look at different areas of lean in our universities globally. We've shared successes, we've shared challenges, we've shared all the growth pains that we have in embedding some of these ideas within our institutions. So at the heart of it is our passion, for lean, continuous improvement and transformation. So for those of you who I haven't met yet, this is me. My name's Tammi Sinha. I'm a senior lecturer in operations and project management at the University of Surrey, which is based in the UK in the south of England, so just south of London. And I have a couple of roles at the university. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Studies for our Surrey Business School programmes, and I'm also a senior lecturer. I am located within the discipline of management, and I'm a fellow of the Institute of Sustainability. I'm also the convener of an improvement community of practice, which has been around for, let's say about 14, 15 years. So if you'd like to get in touch, then please do. I'd be really happy to meet you all, and hopefully this is going to give you some ideas on how you can develop your own community of practice or start your own community of practice. It's always good to think about, well, what actually is a community of practice? You'll see on the screen here the amazing Etienne Wenger. And Etienne Wenger coined the phrase communities of practice quite a while ago now, but he talks about communities of practice are groups of people who share a concern or a passion for something they do, learn how to do it better as they interact regularly. So what you'll see here is that there is a domain. So in terms of our Lean Six Sigma transformation, continuous improvement, we have that as our concern, our passion. We want to learn how to do it better, which is our practice. We want to reflect on our practice, and we want to think about how do we improve what we're doing. And we interact regularly, which means that we are building community. And I think that is absolutely crucial. How do we do that? How do we sustain it? How do we ensure that we keep people engaged, learning, and developing to be the best that they can be? So these three characteristics of communities of practice. The domain is an identity, could be defined by a shared domain of interest. There's a commitment to that domain and a shared competence that distinguishes members from other people. And the collective competence is valued and we learn from each other. So if we apply this to our Lean in Higher Education community of practice, we have an identity, we have our shared domain of interest, we're all interested in continuous improvement, we link into ideas around Hoshin Kanri, for example, policy deployment. We're really excited about working with people, how we develop our processes, how we ensure that we look for value and how we add value within our particular spheres of influence within higher education. We show that we have a commitment to this domain, and we do that by showing up. We do that by mentoring, by coaching, by hosting events, by applying and learning these approaches within our own practice. So as a director of studies, at the University of Surrey, I use visual management, I apply lean thinking to what we do as a business school. I work with our program leaders to really think about how are we ensuring really good student experience and also really good staff experience. So this is where the shared commitment to the domain is important. How do we embed continuous improvement into the day-to-day work that we do? What sort of projects can we launch that help with continuous improvement? For example, we've just launched an informal mid-semester survey where we are asking our module leaders to ask their students what's going well, what's going not so well, and what can we change. So this is a little bit like an after action review, but something that we can operationalize really quickly and share good practice and embed that across our business school. We also have this shared competence that distinguishes us from other people. So in terms of Lean Six Sigma, systems thinking is at the heart of what we do within Lean in higher education. Those are the competencies that we bring to our roles and we share with each other. And we value each other. We value the learning that we gain from each other. So thinking about these really great nested cycles of plan, do, check, act. We come together every year as a global community to share good practice, but we also come together in our local regions as well, in our local chapters to share good practice with each other. The second characteristic of a community of practice is our community. And this is where we engage in joint activities and discussions. We help each other and we share information. So this is what we're doing right now. I'm recording this presentation for you guys so that you can take a look at what I think about communities of practice. There'll be some things that really fit with your way of thinking. There may be some things that you think, what? Why is she talking about that? How does that actually make any sense where I'm situated? But we share information. We share our activities, our discussions, and our information. And we do that with a huge amount of fun, I'm hoping. Well, we do within Lean HE, definitely. But also, when we're relaxed and we are in that sort of frame of mind, it means it's easier for us to share and learn from each other. We build relationships that enable us to do that. So for many of you who were in Cambridge last year in October or in San Diego 2 years ago, then that means that we were able to do this face to face. But I think actually being able to do this online globally so that we can all interact but in different ways is also really powerful. And then the third domain is the practice. Members of our community of practice are practitioners. It means that we do this stuff. It means that we may be researchers, educators, we may be in the professional services area of our universities, or we might be part of the academic community, we might be part of faculty, we might actually sit in both camps. So we practice what we learn and we study. We practice what we preach. We develop a shared repertoire of resources, so our experiences, our stories, our tools, our ways of addressing recurring problems. In short, this is how we develop a shared practice. But this does take time and sustained interaction, and it takes leadership. What you'll see on the screen now is a rich picture. As a systems thinking gal, I like to make things really visual so you can start to see the interconnectedness, the in-betweenness, the different artifacts that we work with. And in terms of a community of practice, if we look at the left-hand side, we have a passion for what we do, we interact regularly. Why? Because we want to make our practice better. We want to share warts and all. We want to talk about what's gone well, what's not gone so well, and how we can improve what we do. So as part of that, we may develop joint agendas. So at the moment, our global leadership teams have been using policy deployment, Hoshin Kanri, to develop a joint agenda for our community of practice going forward. And that is amazingly good to refresh every now and again. And also it takes time. So those of you who are familiar with Hoshin Kanri policy deployment, Bill Bowser and I published a book a couple of years ago, which a lot of brilliant colleagues contributed to. And one of the communities of practice that we have within this community is a Hoshin Kanri one as well. And you're very welcome to join that. Look out for the QR code at the end of this talk. So this is where we start to design what we want to do in terms of our domain, our practice, and our community. So for example, what you can see on the screen here is a community of practice that was developed around professional development in learning and teaching, but also bringing in sustainability, thinking about the scholarship of teaching and learning, thinking about all the different artifacts and things that we bring to this is important. How do we make connections? How do we value each other? How do we listen intently and with grace to each other? Sometimes it can be very hard to listen. So when I'm giving a lecture to my 350 students on one of my modules, I have a look and see what they're doing. Are they actively learning? Are they actively listening? It's a really difficult thing. So when we're crafting our community of practice, we really need to take into consideration, how do we learn? How do we ensure that we are able to do that and that we're creating the right conditions? So part of that is the environment, part of that is the material, and part of it is challenge. So we don't want people to be too bored or too scared. We need to get them to be working at their optimum. And learning is an active sport. And communities of practice help us to do that actively, which I really love about it. We also can think about, when we are engaging in a community of practice, what is the frame that we are working with? So on this slide, you can see 6 frames for informed learning. And I think this is an integral part of developing and sustaining communities of practice. So it could be that we think about our content. So what sort of content are we focusing on? What are we sharing? Is it relevant? So what's the personal relevance frame? So when you are reviewing this clip, you might decide to be playing it at 1.5 speed, which I do sometimes when I need to listen to something but also take it in. So what is personally relevant to you? How is this helping you to improve your practice? There could be a social impact frame as well. So we all work within higher education, and I've worked within higher education for quite a long time now, and I love it. There are challenges, of course, but actually we make a difference to a lot of people's lives. We are preparing students for the real world. When I'm in a business school environment, I am developing future leaders in different industries. And I think that is a really amazing thing to be doing. So communities of practice help me to remain current. They help me to really reflect on my own practice, and they help me to make a bigger impact for colleagues and also students. We can also think about it in terms of the relational frame. So how can we think about different ways of thinking about the topic? What sort of things could we do? So there might have been a way of me incorporating a Miro board into this presentation and asking people to interact with that Miro board after that. I'm still thinking about this. I'm still pondering whether that would be a good thing to do. It may be. I may add something at the end and ask our wonderful colleagues in Lean HE to add that to the presentation. We could think about our competency frame. So are we at the beginning of this journey within Lean, Six Sigma, systems thinking, continuous improvement, or are we experts? And in a community of practice, we want to ensure that everybody gains from these particular conversations. We also want to think about, well, how do we learn to learn? So how do we frame our learning? How do we ensure it is active? How do we ensure it is reflective? How do we ensure that we are pragmatic, that we know why we are doing it? And how can we ensure that we keep all of those 4 cycles, parts of the CoP learning cycle, the pragmatism, the reflection, the doing it, and the theory? So how do we weave all of these things in together? So as you can probably see from my set of slides, I'm quite a visual learner. So for me to make sense of something, I like to have these types of rich pictures. Doesn't work for everyone. Some people perhaps prefer post-it notes, or prefer mind maps, or prefer lists, or prefer to listen, or prefer to be doing stuff. So if you are someone who prefers to take in information by doing stuff, I suggest you take some notes as we're going through. So this is an improvement community of practice that I still co-lead and co-convene. And this community of practice has been based in the United Kingdom on the south coast for around 15 years. So this started when I was based at Portsmouth Business School, and one of my students was doing an MSc in business and management, and she managed to get a fantastic placement at the dockyard, at the Naval Dockyard. And this is where I met the amazing Nigel Ward, who was a lieutenant commander in the Navy at this particular point in time. And as a thank you, I ran a workshop for his team around soft systems methodology. And Nigel had already started a bit of a community of practice before we met, and he had a coffee and cake session with Nige, coffee and cake with Nige, because he led the improvement team at the dockyard and saved a huge amount of money, kept the dockyard from being shut down, and it's a wonderful story around how continuous improvement can really turn around a particular institution. So we started working together after I ran a workshop to say thank you to his team, and we decided that we would start to have interactions. Perhaps every 6 to 8 weeks, we would work up a theme for every year. We would start to think about how we could host it. We then started to invite people from industry, from higher education, from different sectors, from the public sector, the private sector, from charities, to start to interact together. And what I love about this particular community of practice is it does ebb and flow, but we have a fantastic core group of members who come along year in, year out. We have another fantastic group who are on the periphery who come when it resonates more with them. So this year we've been using Katie Anderson's fantastic book, Leading to Learn, Learning to Lead, based on her conversations with Isayo Yoshino, as our workbook and our template for this year. Next year, in 2026, we are going to be looking at the effective change manager, because we understand that the intersection between lean and change management is really, really important. So this is our community of practice, and you are, of course, really welcome to get involved in this. If you are located in the UK, then you can come to our face-to-face workshops as well. If you're located more globally, we have online sessions too. We have had fantastic colleagues from Asia and from North America and from Europe, from all over the world, come and sit in on our online community of practice events for this one. So coming back to communities of practice, you might think, well, what is different between a formal department, a team, an informal network, or a community of interest? So again, this is actually quite an old set of information, but I think it's really lived up to scrutiny. So we could look at it in terms of purpose, in terms of members, adhesive, and duration. So if you think about a formal departments within higher education, we may be part of the IT team or the exam team, or we might be part of the team that looks after external examiners, or we might be part of residences, or we might be part of an academic team that is delivering higher education in terms of lectures, seminars, workshops, or we might be part of a research team that is delivering high quality research in AI, for example, or we could be part of the team that runs open days or offer days. So this is where we have a defined purpose, we deliver a product or a service. We are reporting to our line manager, we have a common goal, and the duration is permanent until that organisation is reorganised or something else. We then may have project teams where we're brought together to accomplish a specified task. It could be that we're bringing in a new IT system, so we bring people together from all across the university to help us to do that. We would have people with direct roles in accomplishing that task. We would have goals and milestones, and the duration is predetermined, i.e. we would have a project completion date where we hand over to university as usual. We could also have informal networks, so we receive and pass on information, we know who's who. This could be friends, business acquaintances, it could be anyone who is part of that informal network. So I'm part of a book group in the area where I live, So we meet every 6 weeks. We're not a community of practice. We fleetingly talk about the book, but we have it's an informal friendship group. So we do get together every now and again. The adhesion is mutual needs and friendships. There's no real start or ending. We keep in touch. We all co-host, so all of these things are really important. Then we can move on to something called a community of interest. The purpose of that is to be informed. So I'm part of the Southampton Climate Action Network, and this is a community of interest where we come together to look at how we can help inform policy at a local and national level around sustainability, carbon literacy, and projects to help us to live more in tune with the natural environment and to reduce our carbon footprint. So members, whoever's interested, the adhesion is access to information, sense of like-mindedness, and the duration is it evolves and it ends organically. So now moving on to communities of practice. This is where we create and exchange knowledge, where we develop capabilities. The members are self-selected by their expertise and their passion for the domain. The adhesion is the passion, commitment, and identification with the group and our expertise. And the duration, it evolves and it also ends organically. So applying this to higher education, we can start to think about how we can use it in terms of knowledge management. So knowledge management is seen as a critical asset within our institutions. We are a huge part of the knowledge economy, and the preservation of this needs to be managed and nurtured. So initial efforts at managing knowledge, there may have been an information system focus, and we may have had really disappointing results. So a community of practice can provide very strong approaches to that, focusing on us, on people, on the social structures that enable us to learn from each other. So you could think about it in terms of a giant knowledge cafe. And I think what is wonderful about our lean in higher education community of practice is that we are generous in terms of sharing and learning from each other. So again, one of the things that is really interesting and helpful, we have our communities of practice that may be cross institutions, it may be cross sectors, but a lot of universities are now thinking that a community of practice is a really good way of getting colleagues to learn from each other as well. So this is where we start thinking about connections, relationships, and the common context. So here we might find experts or individuals with similar experiences. We might find artifacts in terms of lectures, in terms of workshop materials, in terms of model building materials, those types of things. And we leverage weak ties that provide exposure to new ideas. So this is a way of really thinking about knowledge creation, discipline creation. How do we make this integral to the way that universities learn from each other, but also how do we use that knowledge to really improve what we do, to ensure that our colleagues' experience is spot on, is wonderful, is the way it should be, and that our students' experiences are also the way they should be. So ensuring that student and staff experience is fantastic in our institutions. So the way that we can do this, in terms of experts, we can mentor and coach new employees, but even employees at different stages of their career. We can develop willingness to respond to random questions. I love random questions. I think the more random, the better. We can establish positive reputations for our communities of practice. And what I think is really important is how do we hold the space? How do we build safe environments for brainstorming and testing new ideas in this particular domain? So the common context is how do we understand the rules? How do we understand the common language, the situational nature or the context of that knowledge that we're sharing? And how do we understand problems that are of common interest? We can also start to think about, well, what are the benefits to community of practice members? It can help people to thrive in their jobs. It can provide a stable sense of community. It can foster a learning focused sense of identity. And I think within universities, this is so important that we're part of a learning knowledge based institution. How do we foster that within our professional services teams, but also across our academic disciplines where we learn from each other? How do we develop individual skills and competencies, and how do we have time to reflect on that? Things are moving at a pace. So thinking about Gen AI, artificial intelligence, over the last couple of years, it has exploded. And as an engineer and a gadget gal, I'm very excited about that. I think it's really interesting, but also how do we ensure that people don't lose those higher order critical thinking skills? How do we ensure that our graduates leave university being able to fulfill their potentials and not relying on Gen AI to give them the answer to everything, because we know that isn't the answer to everything. How do we help ourselves to stay current? And I think that is really important as well. So giving ourselves permission and some time to help ourselves to do that. And then how do we provide challenges and opportunities to contribute? Because in my experience as a higher education educator and practitioner, and crossing those the different domains of academic and professional services, how do we ensure that we can all work together to do what we need to do within higher education? So this gives you a bit of an outline about some values of communities of practice. We build a common language, we embed knowledge and expertise in a larger population, we aid retention of that knowledge, we increase access to expertise across the company, and we provide a means to share power and influence with the formal parts of the organisation. And I think this is becoming more and more important because with Gen AI, for example, we have access to information, but actually, how do we turn that into knowledge? How do we turn that into wisdom? How do we make that work for us? So we really need to think about, with the onset of Gen AI and all of the tools that it gives us, how do we ensure that we still keep learning, that we keep challenging ourselves, that we know that we are making good decisions for our students and for our colleagues? I love this quote that comes from Wenger and Snyder. So, communities of practice are like gardens. They respond to attention that respects their nature. And I think that is really important. So, communities of practice are informal and self organizing. They benefit from cultivation and nurturing. They can't be controlled and planned as a formal organisation. Although I have sat in on conversations where colleagues use the term communities of practice, but actually it's more of a formal professional network. I think one of the things that I love about being part of a community of practice is that a lot of things that come out of it are unexpected, are informal, they cross boundaries, so we're permeable. We are sort of reinvigorating ourselves in lots of different ways. The leadership role of a COP is to facilitate and support and to nurture that body. So there are 7 guiding principles that have come from the work of Wenger and Schneider. The first one is designed for evolution. So start simply. Allow it to evolve naturally. Don't have too high expectations about what you want to achieve. The second, open a dialogue between inside and outside perspectives. As a systems thinking gal, and I think my own perspective of lean continuous improvement is it is fundamentally based on systems thinking and feedback mechanisms and context and boundaries and being able to learn from what we do. So put knowledge into context, see possibilities, be open, be permeable to what actually comes. Invite different levels of participation. This is the third guiding principle. Have many opportunities for interaction. So everyone feels included. They feel their voices are heard and are valued. Develop public and private spaces. So this could be shared events, one-to-one relationship building. It could be information sharing like this recording here. The fifth guiding principle, focus on value. So how can this be emergent and changing? What anecdotal measures can we use? So what qualitative measures and quantitative measures can we use for success? The sixth guiding principle, combine familiarity and excitement, change things around. I'm a Lego serious play facilitator. I bring my gadgets and my Lego for building models to our community practice a lot, but actually we change it. We bring in other artifacts as well. And then the seventh supporting principle, create a rhythm for the community. changes as the community evolves. And I think that is also really important. Really, really important. It is a cycle of learning. So this is an invitation. If you'd like to get involved with our improvement community of practice for 2025, we still have online sessions as well. But if you can't make anything in 2025, still please take a photo of the QR code and get involved, and we can start to invite you to our programme in 2026. We also have our Houghton Cannery Community of Practice, and we would love you to get involved in that as well. So this is based on policy deployment in higher education and really thinking about how we can apply policy deployment at all levels and learn from each other. So we have a thriving group of people within higher education who are using this approach, and we're really excited to get this community of practice reinvigorated. As an academic, I always like to give you some references. So have a look at these if you're interested in how you cultivate communities of practice. You'll notice actually that these references are quite old, but actually when we have seminal works, it's really good to go back to it. So thank you very much for your company. And what I've given you in this presentation is how do we build and grow a community of practice? It's all about passion. It's all about the community that you build, and it's about your domain. If you'd like to get in touch, this is me. My email, my LinkedIn profiles. I'm based in the UK at the University of Surrey, which is a beautiful campus-based university to the south of London. And if you'd like to come and visit, then please do. Really happy to talk about anything to do with communities of practice, sustainability, lean, Six Sigma, change management. All of those things are really close to my heart. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the conference and the 2025 Lean in Higher Education International Conference, Session 7, Building and Growing a Community of Practice, is sharing why I am mad keen for lean. Thank you very much.